Well, good morning. And I'm Larissa Draves. I'm with the Senior Enrichment Day Planning Committee. Welcome to today's webinar. We had one earlier today on nutrition, and you will soon find that posted on our Senior Enrichment Day website. Today, we're going to hear about Big Rapids area history, and our speakers with us today are Roger Schneidt and Robert King. Before I introduce them, I wanted to kind of explain why we're virtual today. As you can imagine, back in early spring, we had to make a tough decision about could we be in person or not. We would love to be with you in person at Big Rapids High School. But, back when we had to make this decision, the state of Michigan guidelines did not allow us for that. It just absolutely would not allow us to be in person this year. So at that time, instead of deciding to cancel, we decided to try this virtual webinar option. So we thank you for your patience today. We're learning a new software, and we are all volunteers working here today. So we thanks for your patience in case we have any AV glitches at all. We don't expect any, but in case we do, again, thank you. So with that, I would like to introduce our speakers, and then I'm going to thank some sponsors as well. So this morning we have Roger Schneidt with us. Roger is retired from the city of Big Rapids as the Deputy Director of Public Works, and he spends as much time as possible outside. He enjoys deer hunting and all types of fishing with his son. And then we also have Robert King. Robert King was a photographer for the Big Rapids Pioneer for many years and spent many hours in the Dibbles store right downtown Big Rapids that was managed by his father. So welcome, Roger and Robert. While they get set up with their PowerPoint, I am going to do a thank you to our sponsors, because truly, without our sponsors today, we would not be able to have this presentation. So I do want to thank our sponsor. Our lead sponsor for advertising is Spectrum Health Rapids. Thank you so much. We were able to do some ads in the Pioneer and some other things, and thank you so much for sponsoring today. I also wanted to thank Lerner, Zerny, and Fath Financial Group for their use of their conference space. And beautiful conference space. As you can see, I have some artwork behind me from Artworks. So again, thank you to Lerner, Zerny, and Fath for their help and donation of their meeting space. And last but not least, I wanted to thank the Mecosta County Commission on Aging for keeping Senior Enrichment Day alive for the last 30 plus years. Without their help, we could not have kept us alive, especially at a time like this. So thank you again to the Mecosta County Commission on Aging for their help. We all greatly appreciate it. So thank you. So as Roger gets started with his PowerPoint, again, we'll be recording this session and it will be housed on our website. And that website again is www.seniorenrichmentday.com. So as soon as possible after this is over, within the next couple of days, we'll post the recording there and you can view it again or send it to a friend. So thank you for joining us. And at this time, I will turn it over to Roger and Robert.
Thank you, Larissa, for having myself and Robert King here. This will be new to us, a different way of presenting our presentation, and hopefully with only one or two hiccups so far, or none at all. We'll be showing you some great photos and telling you a little bit about the history of Big Rapids. A little bit about the history of Big Rapids, or history as a whole, and then we will move right into some slides that Robert King will narrate about. The majority of them are going to be the old days of Big Rapids. And first of all, history is people just like you and myself. Without some means of recording this history, the special events, our memories, and those that came before us, for instance, your mother, your father, their mom and dad, your grandfather, and the like, your aunts and uncles, they all have history to tell and memories. And without a means of documentation of this history, eventually it would be lost. At the day you were born, you began to be part of history. That happened just through the recording of a birth certificate. Different histories can be recorded by different legal documents, just in that way, like your marriage, your obituary, maybe memoirs that you had written, letters from maybe your aunt and uncle from the war, and things like that. If it, other areas or other places where history could be recorded would be the old newspapers, possibly a historical book. Photos. Oh, photos is what we're going to focus on today. Aren't they something? You look at old photos and there's so much you could see. The clothes that they wore 100 years ago, 150 years ago. It's just remarkable. The expressions on their face, usually not smiling, because they had to hold still for the camera. So you don't see too many smiles in the old photographs. But photographs really tell a story of how things used to be. Look at their clothes, their poses, the expressions on their faces. Here's the first photo that I'm showing, but this, many people don't realize that Big Rapids is the Xenia capital of the entire world. We actually had events every year, an annual event where they chose a Xenia queen. This photo is from 1937, and you can see the winner in the center. The runner-up must be the lady on, I'm thinking it's going to be your right, but obviously the one that came in last is easy to depict just by the expression on her face.
The queen is Betty McDuffie, by the way.
Betty McDuffie. Thank you, Robert. I like this photo because it shows the dedication of the Big Rapids Fire Department back in 1878. And it was so important to fire men, and you can see that they are all fit, and they usually get out of bed so quickly they don't put their pants on. They're out there in their long johns. But I suppose that's just to show you the dedication, but they're posing for this photograph, and they definitely are quite proud of the job that they do. Here's a photo from 1914. The Big Rapids Federal Post Office is being built on Maple Street. When I look at this photo, I'm looking at a group of people, and 5 of the workers are holding levels. I got to thinking, well, why so many levels, and why are they showing them off in this photograph that they're obviously posing for? Possibly it was an extra nickel an hour that they got paid, or they were the ones that were making sure that the laborers were on the level. Also, you can see 6 people here wearing ties, and then you see the laborers are the actual ones that are doing the work, have the dirty clothes on, pants with holes on and the like. Great photo though from 1914. Pictures have a story to tell, and a group of pictures have their own narrative. Here we have a photo showing the Maple Street Bridge. In the background, you see the courthouse and other facilities, residential areas. And we do see a church to the right. I believe that's the Baptist Church. So try to remember this image in your mind for a few minutes. I'm going to go on to a next photo showing these were called donkeys. Robert, this would be a small gauge rail used for logging purposes, and I believe the locomotive here is a steam engine called donkey steam engines. Remember this photo. To get the logs to the train to load them on the flat cars, you generally needed transportation. In this case, we use logging wheels. Another photo to remember. Here's a boat transporting a bunch of people. These are called wanagans. They generally held everything that was needed for a logging expedition along the Muskegon River, the food, the medical supplies, any water, clean water, bedding. But you can see over to the right again, two ladies sitting facing each other, looking at the camera. And here they are again. Now, the last four images, including this one, were part of a painting put together to tell a group story. Here's that painting. You can see the image on the right, the painting, and the actual photograph print on the left. And those photographs were all put together to make this photograph that's on the Fairman Building on East Maple Street. Here we're looking at the artist. His name is John Kuna from Canada, and he painted this in Canada. It's 12 feet high and 66 feet long on numerous sheets of plywood. He never did see the photograph completed until it was installed on the Fairman Building because the studio wasn't large enough to handle them all at one time. So the best he could only see maybe half of what he was doing.
Oh, that was quick. Quick ending. Yeah. Okay, I'm Robert King. Little sales pitch first. I don't know if you have that. Yes. A lot of the pictures, probably all the pictures that you're seeing are donated compliments of people like you that came from families, estates, that were either donated to the museum or that I copied over the years. And I asked people that might have any old historic photos of the area to contact me. Would love to copy the photos and get them back completely intact, not harmed. I've been copying old photos for how many years? Too many years, 50 years. So the other address there on Facebook, that's my address on Facebook. There's well over 1,000 historic pictures of Big Rapids on my Facebook, which you're welcome to look at your convenience. There's lots of interesting comments and information on those photos also. There's a message number that you can text or message me if you have any old photos. I also want to mention a lot of people, their parents, grandparents might have an old box of photo negatives from years and years ago before digital. You'd have negatives that from the cameras. And if you're like my parents did, they got put in a box and hardly ever used again. That's the kind of stuff I love. I can get a quality picture from those negatives, and so many times an old box of negatives are just thrown away, and people don't realize how valuable they are. They're actually more valuable and will give a better quality picture than the photograph themselves. But we love to see pictures, negatives, anything you've got. The last at the bottom is the Mikasa Genealogy. Their office is on 4th Avenue. They have a lot of historic stuff too. During the summertime, they're open on Wednesday afternoons. Their website is there. I guess that was about it. That was my sales pitch for old pictures. So here's a few that I've copied over the years. The original old courthouse. This was taken probably around 1893. This was probably the earliest picture of the old courthouse in existence. There, you see the lawn isn't even landscaped yet. I don't think the building, the clock tower isn't installed. Okay, next picture, an old leaf, what do they call these things? A leaf vacuum.
Yeah.
Picking up
Right.
leaves. I remember when I was a kid, first grade in Lincoln School, the kids would all run out of the school and watch this thing when it went by. What the guy would, it's nothing but a huge vacuum cleaner, and it would shred the leaves, and it was a fun thing to watch when you were a kid. It's more mechanized today, I'm sure. This is the 1874 Schaefer Block fire. You're looking at the center of the picture would be about where the Nesbitt building is today. At the far right, that building is that's actually called the Schaefer Block, and that would be where the J.C. Penney building is today. If you can get an idea where we're at. Yeah. This is a neat photo. This is the oldest picture I've seen of Big Rapids. This would be on the corner of Elm and Michigan. This would be located right where the J.C. Penney store is today. As you can see, it's dated 1862. This picture was taken at the time Abraham Lincoln was president. So, as I said, that's an old photo. Oh, yeah. I'm not sure. I've seen all these pictures before, but I didn't know what order they're going to appear at. So this is the old AMP building. It was called the Furniture Block when it first was built, and back 100 years ago, maybe about 110 years ago, it was the Bertrow and Almroth department store. It was billed as Big Rapids' greatest store. And there it is. It looked a little different. This is 10 years, 15 years perhaps before the AMP moved in that building. Old and new, 1930, just a neat old streetscape picture. This is looking south, looking north on Michigan Avenue. That would be, well, this is the bank corners. I wish I had a pointer. It's kind of hard to, Diamond Jubilee. So this would have been the 75th anniversary of Big Rapids, 1930. Oh, and there's the MP store. The original, when it opened, you that do remember the MP store, they later remodeled it, and the front door was on the corner. When it originally opened, it had center doors And the second story, I'm not sure about this time, but later, I think it does say recreation up there. It was a bowling alley back then. I can vaguely remember hearing the bowling alley, shopping in the EMP store back in the shopping in the store with my mom and listening to the bowling alley above the grocery store. Schaefer Block. This is the Schaefer Block was the corner building where the EMP store was, and there was a fire in 1874, completely destroyed this block, and that's what led to the construction of the furniture block, which later became the EMP store. And there's the two together. You remember the J.C. Penney store, which was, these were, you remember the year 1974, 75, somewhere in there, they tore those down.
Yes.
I remember that was.
Yes, for the new JCPenney's.
I was working for the Pioneer at the time, shot pictures of the demolition, and the EMP store, of course, went out of business. J.C. Penney had a temporary location at the old armory for a while they built the new Penney store.
Where was the old armory at that time?
City Hall, where the City Hall is now. Right next to the brick building was the City Hall. That's after they were done tearing these buildings down, Penney moved into their new building and they tore the armory down.
All right.
This is the Northern Bank building. This was one of the first classes of Ferris Institute were held in that third floor. The exact years, I'm not sure, 1880s perhaps, maybe.
I believe 1884, yes, that it began.
And this is still, it's been remodeled several times. The third floor has been demolished and looks completely different today, but as far as the original structure of the building, it's still what's there today. As the Fifth Third Bank, they changed names of banks so often that I can't keep track. It was Citizens for a while.
Old Kent for a while.
Okay, that's North Michigan Avenue. Right at the very center looks familiar. That's the Dibble store where my dad managed since it was brand new in 1955. People that have been around Big Rapids a while might remember Schuberg Agency's still there. Schuberg's Bar is still there. Boyden Plumbing behind the liquor sign. That was annexed as part of the Dibble store in 74, maybe. I can't remember the exact years. There's the remodeled Citizens Bank building. The third floor is gone and a new facade on the front. Sears is still there from the previous picture. You can see the Sears on the far left. That's a good landmark. That's the good locator there. Here, the year, not sure, 70 maybe, somewhere in there.
I think so. I remember the building being shortened, the third story being taken off during my college days. So that would have been probably around 71. So this photo is probably 73.
Still got pay phones there on the far left. You can still see the phone booths. So that was whatever year they did away with those, but they still had phone booths. And the United Way, I remember years and years they had the United Way drive with the thermometer there. They'd paint it as they got more and more donations. The thermometer got closer to being full. It's not a very good picture of it, but that the clock The bank clock was a classic. Played the classic. The Westminster Peal. Does that ring a bell? That was what the name of the tune.
Yeah.
It's it was a familiar, especially at Christmas time. It was a familiar sound walking down through Big Rapids and listening to the chime on the bank clock. Wonder whatever happened to that old clock. Wonder if it's in the basement of the bank or who knows where it might be.
It is kind of unique how every bank that I know in Big Rapids, which there probably were as many as 8 banks and 8 different locations, they all told you the time of day and they told you that sometimes even the temperature.
Well, they did add their digital clock later, whatever year that was. Citizens Bank had I think that's when they replaced the clock. They had the digital banner across the top. Another early picture at far left would be early 50s, maybe. It's hard to say. As I said, I don't know in advance what pictures are showing up, but that's where the Dibble store went. There's a big open spot. You can see the Boyden plumbing at the very far left. Right next to that, there's an open gap. That's where the Dibble store was built in 1955. On the right side, you see the cafe that you may remember, Whalen's Cafe, that was popular through the 50s. That was it Stella's? What was the?
It could have been Stella, yes. Stella is for one block north.
Whalen's was there anyway. That was Herbie Whalen was the postmaster back then, ran the cafe. There's the Dibble store. Spent many hours reading comic books. At the very center is the popcorn machine. I had the job of popping popcorn. That was the remodeled Dibble store, probably around 72. They got the style, this chalet style, from the new Dibble store that was built in Gaylord, Michigan. They had good response from that new chalet style. I didn't like it because I couldn't shoot photos from the roof of the Dibbles anymore because of this new style roof, but looked nice in Christmas time. Nesbitt block, neat old picture. It's got to be probably around 1910, somewhere in there. Is that a 10 Lizzie?
Oh yeah.
Going around the corner.
Yes.
It's got to be after 1908. Wasn't that the year the fountain was put in? 08 or 09, one of the two. So you can see the famous drinking fountain on the the lower right corner. That's the Big Rapids famous drinking fountain that's still there today. Of course, most of the Nesbitt building is still there today. One of the renovated into apartment buildings. So it's a neat old photo. This would be looking down Maple Street. On the right side is the Nesbitt building again. And on the left side, that would be where the First National Bank was later built. This is before it was built, so it has to be like prior. Buggies, probably turn of the century, 1900, somewhere in there. Dirt street, Maple Street isn't paved yet. So,
Yeah, I think the bank was built around 1920. Currently, it's the Isabella Bank.
oh, there it is. Okay, that's the 1929, I believe. That was constructed. That was still there today. Neat old building. For those that remember, it was the Cornerstone Bar back probably around 1980. somewhere in there. That only lasted a couple of years. It would have been neat if it could have stayed a restaurant, but it didn't last very long. Yeah, Jack Frizzell owned that. Copied from a color postcard, Michigan Avenue, looking at the very center across the street. That would be about where Judson's Hardware was. At the left is the Nesbitt building again. It originally was a bank, and later, for years and years, it was the office of Top Taggart. Lots of people may remember that name. Remember Top Taggart's phone number for years and years?
It's probably number one.
It was number one. That's right. So named after the Top Taggart Field at Ferris, named after the same guy. Oil. He was the Jed Clamp of the Big Rapids.
That's good.
This is a neat old photo. This is Maple Street Bridge, believe it or not. This is before the bridge, the old iron bridge that most people remember is the Maple Street Bridge. There was a wooden bridge, and this is that bridge. At the lower right corner, you see there's an insert. That's the sign that was posted above the bridge. A $5 fine for driving on this bridge faster than a walk. $5 back in 1871. I don't know what that is in today, but I'm guessing that probably $100 maybe. I don't know if I think this was the period that there was a toll at the time, and it was like a penny for a horse.
That's right.
Maybe.
I do remember that.
Or a penny a pig. That's what I think it was, a penny a pig, 2 cents for a horse. People could walk across for free. There was no charge for that. But you're going to bring your livestock or a wagon, anything like that, I think, whatever, livestock, 2 or 3 cents for cattle. Anyway.
Just something to point out, these first bridges, they weren't built by the city. The city didn't own these bridges. They were built by the industry that you see in the foreground, in the background here, in this case. And that's why, even though they were open to the public to use, they still needed a lot of maintenance, continual maintenance on them. Eventually, the city took them over because the decking, the wood decking, many of the deck slabs were missing, and they became a hazard. But again, because they were out there for the logging purposes and industry first, the public in this case came second until the city decided to purchase these bridges themselves, and then they built the Iron Bridge back in, that would have been around 1881, that the Iron Bridges went in.
Now that whole complex on the east side of the river that you see kind of in the background, that would be the Stimson Shingle Mill, which was a very big industry back at the time. Okay. Oh, there it is. We got the listed near the bottom. It lists the toll for the bridge. 4 animals, a vehicle, 10 cents. Horse with a rider, 3 cents. The very bottom, sheep and swine. So, like I said, I had that part right. A penny a pig. You could walk across for free. So, this is the Iron Bridge, the original Maple Street Bridge.
During the time, right, when the city built this one themselves. We're looking at the same view, by the way. A lot of the industries now are gone from the earlier photo from 1871, and we're looking at, was this the Crescent Furniture?
Crescent Furniture, little perspective, right about where that water tower is and the big building below that water tower. That's about in the general area where Curry's service station is today. Now the new bridge that replaced this one is how many feet further south of this? That's not exactly in the same location.
Well,
it's maybe
it's kind of hard to put that in
70, 80
in
feet.
a dimension because it's a curved bridge. If you when you drive on it, you'll notice it's actually a dual curved bridge, one curve to the right and one curve to the left. Only MDOT bridge of that sort that exists, which is kind of unique. So, but it is to the right, or it is to the, it's downstream side, so it's to the south.
For a short period of time, both bridges were there. You could actually drive across the Maple Street Bridge, and the new bridge was being built just to the south of it. Speaking of bridges, I recall this one. This is 64, wasn't it? The Baldwin Street Bridge and the ice cream truck that fell into the river. This has to be on the, probably on, at least for sure, the top 10 events that people ask about happening was the bridge collapse in 64. And it was, I was in high school at the time. And the story was the overloaded ice cream truck crossing the bridge almost made it. Another 50 feet, he would have been across the bridge. They gave away free ice cream. Anybody that came by. And this is the bridge that replaced it, the Baldwin Street Bridge, which lasted how many years? 50 years before it was replaced just several years ago by a much superior design. Which lasted longer, this one or the iron bridge that preceded it?
The iron bridge was built in 81. The one that,
and it lasted to 64, so
yeah.
it lasted more years than this one did.
Yes, this one's 64, and then it was replaced in 2016.
Anyway, this one wasn't for dollar. They didn't money's worth out of this one. The new one is going to last much longer, right, Roger?
Well, the thing was with this bridge too is I think it took construction-wise 3 months to build. So substantially not a long-lived bridge compared to the one that we currently have, which no doubt will be here, I'm guessing 100 years at least.
Speaking of the new bridge, they named this after you, Roger? This was one of your major projects, right? What was your title for the bridge? Were you...
Actually, in this case, I would have just been the overseer for the bridge for the city of Big Rapids. This, we call it the Baldwin Street Bridge. It connected Baldwin Street with the Pierre Marquette. The road, not very many people know this, but the road to the west of this bridge is Pierre Marquette, all the way out to Sheridan Street, which is out by the fairgrounds. When you cross this bridge from that direction from west to east, as soon as you get off the bridge, now you're on Baldwin Street. Years ago, they used to call it the Pierre Marquette Baldwin Bridge. Now it's just referred to as plainly the Baldwin Street Bridge.
I'm confused. Okay, 2 minutes. My, how time flies. The brownie. How many people remember the brownie? Almost all these pictures you've seen go through my Facebook photo albums. They're almost all there. And there's people. You can comment, and other people have commented. And there's interior pictures of crowds that were at the brownie. A little later, there's the brownie also. Sanitary cleaners done. Who ran sanitary cleaners done? Yeah, okay.
What street?
It was Michigan and Linden.
That was just south of the theater.
The old concrete dam, a guy fishing. I don't think they fish below that area much anymore. That used to be a nice fishing hole right there. Star Greenhouse on South Third. What, state of Michigan or something? It's torn down now. That was, my mom used to love to go to this place. That was
Last slide.
last slide. The wagon wheels. There they are. That was landmark of Big Rapids for years and years and years. I think the demise of this was Ferris students pushed it in the river one time, and that was cost more to repair it than it was worth. So that was the end of the wagon wheels.
All right, that's end of our presentation.
Let me know if you got any old pictures. Are we all on?
Great. Thank you, guys. Boy, that feels like you were just getting started. Very interesting to me. I did not arrive on the scene in Big Rapids till the 80s, so I gained a lot out of today's webinar. Thank you so much. Again, just a reminder, this is recorded and this will be housed at www.seniorenrichmentday.com. So feel free to look back at that. And it's a great resource. Thank you again. Greatly appreciate your time today, Roger and Robert. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.